Hello, everybody. Welcome again to one of my lessons. I'm really happy that you're here with me. We're gonna paint today. You see the image that it's right on the table. We're gonna paint this entrance to the cathedral from one city which is not so far from Madrid. It's called Avila. It's a really nice city. It's a small city, yet it's still filled with many things to see, many things to do. It's great for it's just 1 hour and 15 minutes away from Madrid, so it's the kind of place that you would like to go during the weekend and spend the day, or even spend the weekend and try different kinds of food and just chill because it's quite relaxing compared to Madrid, right? So this is a painting which is it relies a lot in the drawing. We're gonna paint. It's a symmetrical drawing, let's say, and the only thing that will break the symmetry will be the shading and the people that we place on it. So um, first we need to lay out the main structure of the drawing properly, and then we will try to break the symmetry with dramatic shadows that you see in the picture, and also placing some human figures that we will not exactly place them as they are in the picture, but more or less. I think the picture that I took, it's already working in that matter, and I really like how the light comes from the right, and you see the also a really dramatic shadow in the bottom. So we're gonna try to paint that, okay? So first we just lay the basic structure of the drawing, and I think that in this kind of painting it's important to more or less be accurate with the drawing, okay? I sometimes don't worry about the drawing too much, but in this situation I will try to construct the drawing in the most efficient way. Not efficient, in the most, let's say, accurate, without painting every detail. But I want the basic structure of the drawing to be accurate. So I want to kind of have the all the arches in place, and I want the symmetry to work, because if the symmetry doesn't work, then you will immediately see it with your eyes, right? So I'm drawing this freehand. You could also use a ruler if it's easier for you. Um, I'm comfortable painting and drawing freehand, but I also make mistakes. So if you want to avoid those, just maybe use a ruler to make so like all the basic lines are kind of parallel, and also you could also measure some distances in order to get everything on the right place and proportions, okay? But I will say that proportions are more important than rather than having every detail and every line exactly on the right place, okay? So but proportions, um, I think, are more important in these kind of drawings, and also the symmetry, to keep the symmetry working well, because the symmetry is when you are drawing a symmetry and the symmetry doesn't work, you will immediately notice, okay? So be mindful of that. There's not so much perspective here. There's only a little perspective here in the arch, let's say, and you have to construct it properly, okay? So just be mindful of that. There's little perspective, but the little that we have, we will try to get it right, okay? So when there's you see, like I'm doing right now, these lines that they're slightly tilted, so I need to have them properly tilted, because if not, you will notice. And here, for example, we have a lot of arches, let's say, which are like they have the center, in this in right on the door, right? The first two ones are kind of circular, and then from this point upwards they go with this kind of pointy in this pointy fashion, right? So I'm not gonna draw each and any one of the arches that we have in the picture, but you basically you need to place mostly the outer arch and the inner arch. They have to be placed, and then we can complete that later with the watercolor, okay? But may just draw a few guiding lines, but don't worry about painting everything, about drawing everything here, okay? Because we're gonna paint afterwards, and we will be able to suggest many of the little details that are here. I just want to have more or less everything in place with the drawing. Now here, within these two beautiful um, circular arches, there's this also like there's little circles within, and I'm gonna draw them. I'm not gonna draw each and every one of the details within each individual circle, but I wanna have all of them in place. And just be mindful; they are symmetric. Okay, so be mindful of that when you draw them. They have to be on at the same height, let's say, and on each side of the symmetry axis. There are many details up there, and I didn't drew all of them. I just want to have the basic structures in place. Okay, now I'm gonna start drawing some human figures, which are important in this painting. They're gonna give us a lot of, let's say, depth, because they are kind of in this. Some of them are in the shadows, some of them are completely sunlit, and I want to place them more or less strategically, so that it will help me enhance, by building contrast with the background, the depth of this scene. Okay. I'm gonna make this person again, because I think I want to have it bigger. I want to have at least one person which is gonna be connecting the more illuminated upper part of the painting, with the lowest darker part of the painting, which is the dramatic shadow that we have going from coming from the right. So I want to make this person bigger, so I am able to connect both worlds. And now I will make the persons on the rest of the human figures in the background. I won't paint all of them on this having the same size. I like having variety when it comes to human figures. So there's one which is closer to us, which is bigger, and then some of them are in the background, a little bit smaller. Then and some of them are not moving, and then there's maybe one person coming moving from left to right, and this way we create movement. We have different human figures in different positions, different sizes, different kinds of movement, and that's something that you can do in order to create just a, kind of like a dynamism, vibrancy in the painting, right? That the illusion of movement makes you feel like the painting is alive, right? Be mindful here, like if you see that the human figure that I placed closer to us, it's let's say the head is in the same position as the rest of the human figures, right? Because we are looking from the same height, so the horizon of this perspective is at the same height that the human figures' heads. So all of the human figures' heads are more or less on the same height, and then the feet, let's say, if you place them closer to the bottom of the page, it means that the person is closer to us, and the rest, the closer they are to the horizon, the horizon line, let's say, the further they are, right? But it's important here, like this perspective is taken, like we're imagining that we're one person looking at this beautiful church. So the horizon line, let's say, of the perspective is at it's at the same height as as the person as it's looking, right? So more or less every head is gonna be on the same position. You might be wondering why I took the drawing away. I just went to the bathroom where I have a mirror, and I looked at the picture through the mirror. A really good way to figure out if a drawing is it's well drawn or not, if the perspective is working and if the symmetry is working, is just take your picture, go to the bathroom and look, or wherever you have a mirror, and look at the drawing through the mirror. If you do that, you will immediately, your eye kind of takes like newer, fresher look at the drawing, and then immediately you will realize if there's any mistakes. So just take the drawing, go to a mirror, and if the perspective is not working, if the symmetry is not working, just by looking at a different perspective, by looking at it in a different way, you will immediately kind of feel if there's something off. So I really encourage you to do that. I do it all the time because when you're drawing whatever, you get so immersed in the drawing that you're doing that you kind of I don't know, like you're unable to see many mistakes, many errors, that if you go to a mirror, even if you take a picture with your phone. I sometimes just take my phone and I take a picture, and just by looking at the drawing from a different perspective, I get a lot of information of different mistakes that I made that I didn't realize because I was so into the drawing. I was in the zone, let's say, and I kind of skip or miss many things that just by looking at it from a different perspective, you immediately pay attention to that. Now we're gonna start painting, okay? And the most important thing here is we're gonna make. I want to make a really atmospheric painting, okay? So I'm gonna weight the paper before. I want to create kind of like let's say, a first wash that will be focusing on the light of the first layer of light, right? And I want it to be kind of like atmospheric. So I'm gonna wet the whole paper, and then I will give this first layer of light, and I just have to be careful not to go over certain details that I think are important to preserve the white of the paper. So for example, here at the top of this arch, there's this really kind of like light highlight that I don't want to cover, okay? So I just purposely left a small stripe of paper without going over it. I don't know if you can see it from this perspective, but you will see later when I paint what I mean, right? And right now, when I go down here, I don't want to go all the way down because I want to preserve this really nice horizontal stripe of light. I want to kind of preserve it really, really, really light. And I'm not gonna go over the human figures as well, because I want them to be also, at least some of them, I want them to be kind of in big contrast with the background. So I just avoid going over the human figures, and then we will paint them later, preserving some of those highlights by using the white of the paper. Alright, so we're gonna go for it. I always wet my watercolor palette so that it's easy for me to get paint from the palette. I'm gonna use a mixture of yellow ochre and raw sienna. So I want it to be this kind of first layer of color. I want it to be kind of really light and really warm, let's say. I'm thinking also doing a small wash of quinacridone burnt orange. And I'm gonna go I'm gonna go here on top. I'm gonna be warmer, and I'm gonna cool it down. Not cool it down, I'm gonna make it lighter as I go down. Now I'm mixing some Pyrrole Scarlet with Opera Pink and some Yellow Ochre. I really want this upper part to be quite warm. And now here I'm just lifting some paint because I want to preserve certain highlights from this part. You see, I'm kind of like almost making kind of like a diagonal going from left to right, and I'm changing from this kind of more intense reddish mixture to the now a little bit more yellowish mixture, and I want to have this kind of I made this kind of tilted transition from one color to the other because I want to convey the idea that the light is coming from the upper right part of the painting, right? And you see what I meant before. I left this small highlight on top of the upper right part of the arch I didn't go with the water over that because I wanted to preserve the white of the paper in that part, okay? Now I think I need a little bit more red on top, so I'm gonna add more Opera Pink and more Pure Scarlet to the mix. So I am more or less covering everything, but I am just being mindful in regards to where to keep some highlights by either not going over them or by lifting paint, and just being mindful about them, okay? And again, I want to enhance the idea that the light is coming from the upper right part, so I am creating this kind of let's say tilted frontier between a warmer, redder, hotter color and a little bit slightly lighter yellow underneath. And also, the closer we are to the ground, the lighter it is, right? Because there's a lot of bounced light from the ground, right? Now I'm lifting some paint here in this part of the arch because this part of the arch is quite illuminated, let's say. I like using a paper tissue just to create highlights where I didn't create them before, or also to create kind of like glows and different kinds of atmospherical effects. So again, I have one mixture of paint, which is a mix between a Pyrrole Scarlet and a Yellow Ochre, let's say, and then I have another lighter mixture, which is basically raw sienna and Yellow Ochre, okay? And I'm playing with both right now. But this is the first layer of light, okay? I will come later with shadows. I will go on top of this. This is just a first wash, which I want it to be warm and strong, and then we will cover it with shadows afterwards. But we need this to be strong. If we don't do this strong now, this paint will kind of dry and fade away, and it will be too light if we don't go strong at this stage. And again, I'm trying not to cover the human figures because we want to preserve highlights. Okay, and now while this is still wet, I want to create some color noise. Let's say I'm gonna use cobalt blue in order to build a little bit of. I just want to create some atmospherical noise. Let's say. So this is not the. I will make the. The second one is gonna be about shadow, but I want already to hint certain shadows here in this first wash, but just kind of like giving a little bit of color noise. Okay, I like these first washes to be let's say dynamic and to have atmospherical effects, and just by painting wet on wet with this mixture of first warm colors and now just touching here and there with this cobalt blue, we create some color noise that will be of great use afterwards. I took a toothbrush, and we're gonna sprinkle some watercolor right with the toothbrush to just to create some a little bit of texture. And you can do this. The paper is still wet, okay? So right now you might feel like, oh, I'm gonna ruin it, but this is gonna kind of blend in with the wash that we had before, because it's still wet, right? So all that I'm doing now will kind of mellow down a lot. But it's a great way to create textures in painting like these ones. Just to you can either use a brush, or I like sometimes to use these toothbrushes because they sprinkle the water in a really kind of explosive way. Let's say a lot of small, let's say, drops of water. If I use my brush, normally the drops are kind of bigger, and it's not bad. I'm just lifting a little bit here and there, and we're gonna go soon to the next phase, which will be like starting to lay shadows. But you see that this is already kind of working, right? There's like really warm wash and highlights. I will dry the paper now. All right. Now we're gonna move to the second stage. We're gonna start to paint the shadows. I still want to have a warm wash here with just some quinacridone orange and opera pink. I want I want to have this warm mix so I can just create within the shadows that we're gonna do now. I like the idea of having bounced light in different places, so that's why I have also a warm wash like this one. I'm preparing a mix of cobalt blue, ultra blue and burnt sienna, in order to get this kind of dark gray, let's say. And then I will have another mixture which will be a little more into the blue domain. I always like having two different kinds of cold shadings, let's say. So one is a little bit more blue and the other one is a little bit more tipping into gray, right? So I can shift from one to the other in order to change the shadow temperature. This is what I'm doing now. See how I kind of took some water out of the brush before mixing the colors, because I don't want the paint to be too watery, let's say. I'm trying to be thick so I can control where it goes. So I'm starting with the shadow which is in this part of the arches. Is the strongest one. If you look at the picture, you see that this is the darkest, and then the right half of the arch is a little bit warmer, let's say, because it's getting a lot of bounced light. The light is kind of hitting on the left side of the arch, on some parts of the left side or the arch, and it's bouncing back. So the other one is a little bit warmer, and I'm laying the shadows here, trying to leave some room for certain highlights, right? So I just kind of follow the direction of the arches as I paint, just to keep or to show those arches that we didn't draw before. In order to have them in the paper, I kind of paint following these lines, and immediately your brain kind of connects the dots, and you see um, that these big arches are composed by smaller arches which are all parallel to each other. So here I'm worried that the edge of this part that I'm doing now kind of shows that there's this structure of smaller arches. So the border of the shadow is not a straight line, it's kind of like going in and out because of these kind of different arches that compose the whole thing. What I'm doing now is I am laying the paint with one brush and I'm moving it with another. This second brush that I have, it's slightly wet, and I use it to move the paint with a little bit less intensity than if I do it with the other brush, which has a lot of paint in it. And you see that just by doing what I'm telling you, but laying the paint with one brush and moving it with the other, I kind of create a shadow which is kind of atmospheric, and it's not a flat surface. No shadow is completely flat, right? So that's what I'm trying to do when I'm using the two brushes. Now here in these sections, there are many details that I could paint, or I could just try to define in a really, let's say, detailed way. But I don't want to. I don't need to paint every little silhouette of every little carving in the stones. I just worry that, for example, I'm doing these little arches now, and I want them to be visible, so I paint on them, and then there's a lot of little carvings and like little statues which are on the surface of these parts, and I don't want to paint them completely in a complete accurate way. I just need to show, to give the impression that there's like this is not a flat surface, that there's a lot of curvings, like and reliefs in it. So I just paint in a way in which I kind of move the paint, leaving many little spots with kind of preserving light. So I build a sense of volume rather than painting each individual little piece. And again, I'm all the time using the two brushes. Okay, one to lay the paint, and another one to move it, to either move it or to lift paint where I need to. Okay, it's just that I don't want to create a flat surface, so I need the two brushes in order to do so. And I also, whenever there's a place where I feel like there's bounced light, I use the warm mix that I already prepared in order to create color noise. But this color noise that I'm doing now, it's a warm color noise. I'm gonna start soon painting the door, which is darker than the rest, but it's darker on its edges because it's slightly positioned behind this whole arched system, so there's kind of like a shadow going all around this the perimeter of this door. So I will lay paint which is slightly darker on the borders of these doors than rather than in the center. Like I said, the border is slightly darker, and now I move the paint with the other brush just to create this effect that I was telling you about. And immediately you read that the doors is slightly, it's a little bit further away, right? now like before. And there's a lot of carvings, a lot of reliefs in this section, a lot of let's say silhouettes that cast shadows, that objects that are going, that are not big, they make this surface the opposite of flat, you know. So and there are many little details, and I could go crazy trying to paint them all, but I don't want to. I just want to preserve the basic, the bigger shapes, let's say, and forget about the rest, because I just can, you know, it could be too complicated to paint everything, and we don't really need to. We just need to suggest the idea that this is not a flat surface, and just by preserving, or like focusing only on the bigger shapes, the bigger objects, and then adding some texture here and there for the smaller ones, this is going to work. Okay, so don't stress about painting every little thing. Just focus on the bigger shapes, the ones that cast the bigger shadows, and the ones that catches the biggest highlights, and then the rest you can just more or less try to create a texture that explains that this is not a flat surface. And like before, I'm using the two brushes, and I know all the time using the same colors. You know, like we did a really nice first wash, which was quite intense in these reds and in these ochres and siennas, and now we're just using using a shadow color on top of it, which is transparent, so we are not losing that warmth that we had before, and and that's it. We're not creating complex washes. We're not doing anything complicated with in regards to how to mix in our watercolors. We're just working on a really warm first wash, using a second wash with a kind of neutral gray, which is helping us to define the three-dimensionality of all the objects that are catching light, casting shadows, and so on. And this is the goal of this painting, you know, like catching the light and then using the shadows to explain the three-dimensionality of this facade. Now there's a section here on the right which is also in the shadows. There's another one on the left, and I want to have them because again, shadows help explain the three-dimensionality of things. And now the other side. And here I am just going to leave a really small highlight here. If you look at the picture, there's a really small object catching light, and I want to preserve that because I like the idea of having a lot of highlights here and there. Now I'm gonna add a little bit of texture to this facade. There's a lot of brickwork, a lot of masonry work in this facade, and I just want to hint that. So I am using the same mixture of color. On top of it, it's still slightly wet, so it will open a bit, but it will leave a mark, which will help us understand the materiality of the facade, which is what I want. And I do the same for these parts which are in the lights. I am using this brush. It has not so much paint. You see that I took some paint and then I kind of clean it with the paper tissue. I just want to hint the idea of this masonry work. Okay, so I don't need to have I need this to be quite, let's say, soft. This is just texture. And we keep creating texture. I'm just sprinkle some watercolor with the toothbrush. Not so much intensity. And I'm just gonna move a little bit some of these textures that I was creating. Okay, now it's time to create the shadow, the dramatic shadow on the lowest part of the painting, okay? Which is completely white right now. So I moved to the cobalt blue mix that I did before. I just need to reactivate it because it was already dry. Try to use my brush fast here because I want to have a kind of like a broken edge, let's say. I am adding some alizarin crimson to the mix because I want to warm it up a little bit. The closer it is to us, the warmer it is. You see how adding the light immediately illuminates even more the the bottom part of the church. Now I'm just gonna add some kind of reflections, and I'm using the warm mixture that I had before with some quinacridone orange and yellow ochre. It's basically quinacridone orange. And this looks a little bit like a mess now, but then I'm gonna kind of fix it. Okay, you just need to. The painting it's still wet, and I'm putting the brush on top of it, and I'm able to move the paint quite easily. This stone is kind of it reflects light really well, but it's not like a clear reflection. Okay, it's kind of like a matte reflection. So I want to just hint the idea of a reflection on it, but not being too without being too literal about it. And now I'm just lifting some paint on the edge of this shadow. I want it to be slightly, let's say, softer. So I am lifting some paint here now. I am slightly wetting the edge of the shadow, so it opens a little bit. You can also use your paper tissue to build those reflections. think I'm gonna make the light stripe slightly smaller. Yeah. Now we're gonna dry this up and then keep going. Okay, so now the floor is kind of built with big stones, so there's a lot of joints here that reflect light or they cast a shadow in different ways. So I'm gonna do that. I am I am using a slightly wet brush in order to draw some lines on top of this floor, and then I'm gonna lift the paint with the paper tissue, and this is a great way for you to also create some directionality to the point of interest. So the point of interest of this painting is the door, basically, or the church. And if I lift paint like this and create this kind of directionality lines, immediately your eye, it's even more enhanced or more let's say drawn towards this focal point, right? So always have that in mind, that you can use a graphic let's say lines and things like that in order to bring attention to the places that you think are more important, right? And it's also a great way to create texture. And in order to do this, you need a paper which is kind of thick, right? You can't leave paint in any kind of paper. Some papers, if there's not enough thickness in the paper, you will probably like, I don't know, go to waste. And now I'm also I created some lines by lifting paint, and now I'm just using a brush with some with some watercolor in it to build some shadows in the same floor. So these lines on the illuminated part, they will be dark, and on the shadow part they will be light. So I'm just continuing some of the lights that I did the lines that I did before by lifting paint, and continuing them like a dark line in the illuminated part of the painting. Okay, now I have already more or less established a texture on the ground. I place different lines that show that how this ground is composed by big stones, and I'm gonna move to, and I also use those lines to create some directionality to enhance my focal point. Now I'm gonna add some darker values. I am using neutral tint to get this kind of dark gray. I mixed it a little bit with the previous mixture that we had from the cobalt view and the burnt sienna, um, but it's basically neutral tint. I want to darken this area. There's an entrance door here, which is open, and it's really dark. You can look inside the church from here, more or less, and there's also a figure in front of it. So it's great to build yet again another point of interest in this area. And again, as always, I use one brush to place the the paint on the paper, and then I move it with another one. I don't want to have flat surfaces. I want always to have certain variety in any surface that I place on the paper. So that's why I use mostly all the time two brushes. Now I'm gonna place some details from, this is a wooden door. It has a really detailed kind of carving work that it's showing, and I just want to show it a little bit. I'm gonna darken now. There's this kind of I think glass work on top of this door. It's really beautiful section here. It has a lot of let's say carvings and reliefs, and it's kind of done in a really nice geometrical way. And there are a lot of circles here, and certain gaps that are organized around circles, and I just want to enhance that. I want those kind of circles to be seen, so I am darkening these details a little bit because I need them to be kind of a little bit stronger as they were. I am also adding some texture to these pointy arches. Um, some of these pointy arches are kind of also like filled with many also reliefs, and they're not completely, let's say, they're not a straight line. They have they have three dimensionality, and I just want to show that. It's crazy the work that the people who build these buildings they put into place. I mean, it's how many years they dedicate to build these churches, sometimes centuries, and everything kind of worked with their hands. It's so inspiring, so beautiful. um, I think a lot about how these people they thought in centuries, not in years, right? They planned centuries ahead. It's something that we kind of have missed, right? And these buildings remind us of how are we capable of so much greatness when we think ahead, and when we don't have our minds just on whatever is in front of us. Long term, not short term. I really like that. Now it's time to make the figures. I left white on purpose, and this one which is in front of us, it's gonna be quite dark, and because it's in the shadows. And I already said that before, but I want to use I want to remind that I want to use this figure as a kind of like a connection between the illuminated and the non-illuminated parts of the painting, right? It's kind of like a connector. It's half of this figure, it's gonna be on the like building contrast on the illuminated part, and it's gonna go down and kind of dissolve into this shadow area, and that way it's gonna connect both worlds. It's gonna build a beautiful contrast, and it's gonna build also a lot of depth in the painting. I'm kind of blurring on purpose the legs, kind of like trying to create the illusion of movement. No, if we, as it goes down, one leg is slightly longer than the other, and both of them are kind of blurred. So immediately your brain kind of figures that this figure has to be moving, right? I'm just adding a little touch of color to this figure. I'm mixing neutral tint with Venetian red, just to give it a little bit of color. I'm working right now with not too much water. Now it's a turn of these these figures on the sunny section, let's say. So that's why I have to use more saturated colors. These figures are in the sun, so I can be a little bit more, let's say, expressive with colors. I'm using Venetian red and some celestial blue, but you don't have to use those colors. Just be mindful that in these parts, these figures are illuminated by the sun, so parts of them will be almost white, and other parts will be, the color will be more visible. You can be a little bit stronger with the color here, right? In the figure that we did in front of us, it's just dark. It's almost dark because it's just in the shadows, but these ones are like getting some sun, so I can be a little bit more, let's say, stronger with the saturation of the color. And I'm being mindful not to miss white. Like I'm trying to leave some space for little highlights, in the shoulders and on the part of the body which is just hit straight by the sun, so that in that sense we can create contrast between the human figure and the background, right? If I just go over it with if I complete if I paint the whole silhouette that I left unpainted, then I'm gonna miss a lot of light here. So I don't want that. So that's why I'm kind of being mindful of certain places where I don't want to miss the light. Basically, the top of the head, the shoulders, and also some parts of the body which are directly heated by the sun. But basically, you can paint any human figure, and if you put some highlights on the shoulders and the head, they're normally gonna work right? Now I'm painting a little bit of some shadows on the ground from the human figures, but also from the building itself. Now this is a different kind of character. This one is moving to the right, so I'm having people that are staying still, people that are moving. One is moving towards the church, one is moving away from it, and it's part of the game, right? To create the illusion of movement. Now I am just going to add some color to. There's two statues in front of the main entrance. Two lions laying on top of a kind of like a small column, and I just want to give them some color. Also minding to leave some white around them, basically in the direction where the sun is hitting them, in order not to lose light. And there are two metal chains that go from these columns towards the building, and I'm just gonna sew them like this. They also cast a shadow. A few more details and highlights here and there, but this is mostly done. Now I am wetting the brush a little bit, and I'm gonna go over certain areas, and then with a paper tissue I'm gonna lift some paint. Okay, just to, for example, these arches here, I kind of almost lost them, and I want to just enhance them a little bit. And I'm gonna do this in a few places, just to kind of like build a bigger contrast between certain elements that catch more light and the shadows around them. So I normally try to plan beforehand where the bigger highlights are, so I can kind of just use the white of the paper. But sometimes you feel like on the way that there's some light that you lost on the process, no? And this is a really nice way to get it back. You just wet the paper in certain areas, and then you go with the paper tissue, and normally if the paper is good, this is an Arches paper, 300 grams, and it's kind of thick, so I can really easily leave some paint just by wetting the paper and then scratching it with the or going with the paper tissue afterwards. time to get the tape off. I think this is done. Maybe later I will probably add some highlights. I don't know. I like to leave my paints to rest a little bit, and then if I feel like they need something else, I just come back and do it. But I think it's good for the moment. For the purposes of this explanation, I think we're done. And I hope that you liked it. I hope that you learned something from it. And for example, you might have learned from me that it's good to place more tape on the paper, because if not, you can just miss like I did. Like I have now some blue on both sides of the paper where it shouldn't be, but it's okay, because later I can use a passepartout and get it away.